If you search how to make coloring pages on YouTube, 99% of them are side hustle slop, promising you'll make billions just using AI. I make no such promises. You will almost certainly stay at your current income level. I'm sorry. We will not be using AI. This will be working your fingers until they cramp. I'm sorry. But through that pain, we will be lovingly and slowly creating some art that you can be proud of. And hopefully you and your friends can enjoy coloring in. It's actually been a goal of mine to create a set of digital coloring pages for a long time. And I finally completed them this year. So here is my step-by-step process so that you can do it too. One of the best things you can do for any creative project is give yourself a limitation. The unlimited possibilities of the blank page are overwhelming and it's easy to become scattered and give up. So the first thing to do is pick a theme. A theme provides a framework and it helps give you artistic focus. Start with a broad category, and this could be something like your favorite season or a vacation destination or your favorite type of food or a movie you like, just anything you find interesting. So for my coloring book, my theme was Bucketgirl, struggling to wear hats. From here, you can brainstorm all the details that make up that theme and try to be specific so that you are really limiting your options. Don't just say your theme is favorite foods. Make it favorite spicy noodle dishes, like get granular with it. Too many options means too many opportunities to quit. For Bucketgirl and hats, I made a list of all the types of hats she might wear and then explored in detail how they would look on her bucket. So some would be too small, some are too big, some are too tight. I'm trying to be very specific. The goal at this stage is to create a checklist that you can work your way through. So this is the overview. You have your broad category, then a specific theme, and then the details that make up that theme. And each specific detail will become the focus of one coloring page. The cool thing here is that the more specific you make your theme, the more unique and distinct your coloring pages will feel. From this checklist, we can start sketching out our designs. I like to go straight to digital because I'm very loose and messy with my sketching, but you can start on paper and switch to digital when you've got a better idea of your design. Whatever works for you. Just on a technical note, I'm using Procreate and I'm using the pencil brush from Angry Miko's watercolor brushes, who, by the way, is an amazing art teacher on YouTube who I've learned so much from. But I also like to use the 6B pencil that comes with Procreate. In terms of canvas size, it really depends if you're going to print the pages or not, but you definitely want 300 dpi. That's going to give you a high resolution image. If your designs are going to stay digital, then you can really choose any canvas size you like. If you're going to print them, then I would recommend choosing the size of a standard sheet of paper so it prints easily at home. Or if you're sending it to a printer, then match the sizing they recommend. But I suppose the general rule is bigger is always better. When it comes to sketching, for me, these designs focus on Bucketgirl. So my process is about creating a scene for Bucketgirl to inhabit. These are going to be very character-focused compositions. In these early stages, I stay very loose. Just keep the pencil moving and don't think too hard about the details. Just keep scribbling and erasing, scribbling and erasing. It's going to look messy for a long time, but eventually the designs will start to take shape. I'm using a lot of Pinterest to get general ideas. For example, I really like this Russian art and the way they create compositions that feel layered but not too complex. Because I'm creating coloring pages that have a character as the central focus, the guiding principle here is that the composition needs to lead the eye towards Bucketgirl, and I'm designing everything else with that in mind. With the rough sketches looking good, it's time to refine them to enhance clarity and detail. And I have a trick here that I want to show you. So for example, let's say I'm happy with Bucketgirl in her beret sitting at the table. I'm going to put her on her own layer, then create a new layer underneath and fill that layer with a color and merge these layers together. So essentially I've created a Bucketgirl card that I can move around. Now say I want to add a waiter or another character behind her. I'm going to draw him on his own layer and do the same thing. Create a colored background for him on another layer and merge those together. Now the reason I'm doing this is because it gives me a ton of flexibility to reposition and resize both Bucketgirl and the waiter independently and find a composition that works. As you're refining your design, being able to move and resize elements like this is so helpful. If you take one thing from this video, this is it. The reason this is so useful is because it helps you recover from a mistake you are almost guaranteed to make. This tripped me up a lot, and it's this. creating awkward or confusing shapes in the design. It's easier if I just show you. So look at this. As I reposition the waiter, his legs create confusing shapes under the table. When someone tries to color this, they're going to struggle to understand what these shapes are and what color they should be. So by creating these cards, you can move elements independently and you can discover and then correct confusing problems like this without having to redraw anything. So here's another good general rule. See how his arm is intersecting Bucketgirl's beret? It's best for shapes to fully cross a line rather than just touch. Touching the line like this, bad. Crossing like this, good. This is how you create clarity with the lines and the shapes. Paying attention to details like this is how you create clear and understandable coloring pages. So it took a lot of fine-tuning, just resizing and repositioning to get to where both Bucketgirl and the waiter fit together well and all the shapes and lines were clear. So once you get these elements to a stage where they fit together well, I like to group them now so they're a single unit. I don't merge them because I still want the flexibility to change it later, but it keeps it tidy to put them in a group. Getting all your elements together and arranged in a way that doesn't create confusing shapes is probably the most important stage of this whole process, so definitely spend a lot of time here. As your characters are looking good, they also need to fit well on your background. So this is the same process of refining the shapes, the leading lines, and the arrangement of all the elements to make sure you're not creating any confusing shapes or intersecting lines. This is definitely the most time-consuming stage of the process, and I promise you, I was very tempted to skip ahead to the inking, but trust me when I say don't. You will absolutely end up finding mistakes or things that just don't work and end up having to do this stuff again and again. You can't rush this process. So when you've got a good balance between the detailed areas and places with some breathing room, it's now time to ink. This should be relatively easy because essentially you're just tracing over your sketches. Personally, I'm fine with having some wobbly lines and small imperfections. After all, this is hand-drawn and I don't want it to look perfect or AI generated. To keep things consistent across all the pages, I saved 3 brush sizes: thick, medium, and thin, and use these for the foreground, middle ground, and background. You can save a line weight in Procreate just by setting it on the slider and then pressing this plus button. The line will appear on the slide and you can lock onto it. A mistake I made on my first version of these coloring pages was using the same line thickness for everything. And when I gave it to friends to color, they actually found it confusing because it was hard to differentiate between everything on the page. So the different line thicknesses help provide clarity between your foreground and background. In practice, this means I gave Bucketgirl the thickest outline and the lines got progressively thinner for objects that were further into the background. So at this point, you're on the home stretch. Put on some music or your favorite comfort movie and just ink all of your pages. If you want to take things a little further, you can send your inked pages to a trusted person for feedback. I sent mine to my sister for like a final quality control check, and having a fresh pair of eyes to look over the pages was so helpful because of course there are mistakes or confusing areas that we've become blind to. I would also recommend getting, a family or friend just to color in the pages and report back what they thought. Adding color is definitely going to expose little flaws that were just invisible in the line art. And that's it. I hope this was helpful, and please share your coloring book ideas in the comments. I'd love to hear them.